Welcome to Mayhem Monday, this Memorial Day edition with the main man, DJ. I actually thought of something on the weekend, DJ, that I think we should talk about today. Kind of hitting DJ with an audible. We'll talk about that when we get back.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
So I had this thought, and it's been one of those the conversations that have been kind of going around in my head. Sometimes I have like multiple ones at the same time, but one of the ones.
Listen, I don't know if we're supposed to admit that out loud, but I have this saying,
brother, I really don't care. Now, and part of me says it was a great conversation today, but then another part of me says our viewers are going to probably be real low today because everybody's probably sleeping in, first major holiday in the U.S. of the year. Summer. And so maybe, start of summer, everybody's, it's probably a big night last night, lots of fireworks or the fireworks tonight.
It's
kind of all weekend.
Yeah,
it's like our major 4 weeks.
Once it gets close to July, it's like any reason to shoot fireworks. People,
fireworks. Even if you just want to scare the dogs in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
So, and then part of me says, okay, is this going to be a good conversation today? What it was is, what is a fair margin on a load? And it's a big conversation. And you know what? Let's just have it today because people can watch the replay and we can kind of reference it and push back. So, at what point are you gouging? At what point are you ripping a customer off? Very valid questions, especially in today's market, right? Because we're talking about costs increasing, fuel increasing, rates going down. But the end result, customers' costs to get product to market have increased. Now, my question becomes, or the conversation that starts happening is, okay, I understand that rates have gone up, but because rates have gone up, where should our margins be? And I think the conversation needs to be had. So I'll kind of break out my formula, and I'd love to hear yours. My formula for my profit has always been, what do you need? What is it going to take from me, my team, my company to give extreme value? And I'll explain that in a very easy manner. So when I was doing a lot of electronics, it was huge security. We had to have security guards at night. We had to travel in teams. We could only stop at certain truck stops. All of these things required me to pay drivers more, required me to pay the companies I worked with more, required more security and more of my time. I wanted more money. When I moved pharmaceuticals and it was 2 skids worth $1.5 million and I had to update customers every 2 hours, I wanted more money. So my question for you, DJ, becomes if that's the service, and my main business in my brokerage life was pharmaceuticals. My main business in my asset life was electronics and computers. And on the pharmaceutical side, I would make $3,000, $3,500. Sometimes $5,000, sometimes $7,000. And the reason being is if it was $4 million in pharmaceuticals on like 7 skids, I had a lot of pressure. I'd pay way more money, but I also wanted bigger profits. So then you get to speaking with customers who say, you know what, Dan, 12 to 15% is a great margin. Okay. Again, right? It's on average, it's a pretty good margin. But if you require A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G, is 12 to 15% a good margin?
No. And so I agree completely. And this was a battle that I had. And I just, again, guys, for anybody out there who is watching this right now, but again, and anybody new to this, there's no, again, Dan, that's why we do this show. Nobody is teaching. There's no set rules to this.
No.
And nobody is teaching anything.
I love that you said that, DJ, by the way.
What's that?
I love that you said that.
You know what I'm saying? No, there is no formula. There is no set. Nobody's teaching anything that really. So like, I just your question was an internal question to myself daily, was like, okay. And then that's where I started to, okay, well, these are very small margins, but I don't have to, it's literally, I have the set supplier who is taking these loads all the time. I'm literally just pushing paper. So my margins were very low, super low, to where, obviously my leadership and companies do not like it often. But yeah, I mean, I usually stayed around 10%, or whatever the smallest that they would let me go, on where I really had nothing to do besides landing the customer and pushing the product, or you know what I mean, pushing the paperwork to the supplier. But now something like you're saying, something that takes longer, more of a pain in the butt, a lot more check calls, a lot more security, a lot more,
well, there's another side to it.
Because of the value, then yeah, margins, I would go up, and then it was, okay, well, if they're giving me X number of loads, then the margin went down. And then it was just, so it was kind of like I was doing.
So, okay. Can I stop you there? Because why would you put your margin down if they're giving you X number of loads? X number of loads means more work, means more people, means you have a higher cost.
Yeah. True.
See, where it's like, well, if I give you volume, if I give you 10 loads a day, are you going to drop your rate? And I said, and I've always said, well, sorry. At first it was like, yes, of course. But then you realize, so if you have an area like this that you can source, say 3 trucks a day, and somebody says, I need 10, you actually have to go to this area, which means you're actually you might, unless you have it set up properly, but if it's kind of like a one-time thing where it's like, hey, we got a big project this week, you're going to be pulling trucks from all sorts of areas, especially in today's day and age, because so many people have scattered, fragmented triangles now of where they service, because they're kind of chasing volumes.
But they're just chasing exactly wherever the volumes.
So now you got to pull from a bigger area. So it's actually an oxymoron to say, well, if you give me multiple, unless it's dedicated, then you can kind of reduce margins if it's less. But so when I first started in this industry, it was actually our corporate lawyer that taught me to look at multiple areas of a business to understand margin. And I'll give you a perfect example. So I was one of the first brokers to get into Dell Computer. And this is at a point when Dell Computer, they were really starting to take off. But they knew within, 2.5 or 3.5 days, 3.5 to 4 days from time of ordering, if the product was not in the person's hand, they would cancel. So they understood their cancellation. So when we were moving Dell Computer, I was a broker and I was using one carrier. And I remember sitting down because we were going over contracts and with insurance companies, because as a broker, it's you got like $1.6 million worth of computers. Where does the liability fall if something goes wrong, right? And I mean, cargo cats were involved. These things were stolen at a dime a dozen. And I remember sitting down with Paul and he's saying, okay, Dan, you got to understand, your margin will come into legal play. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, okay, think of it like this. Because I was always, $150 kind of a load. I was always very neutral. Like no matter what it was, I'd put $150, $200 on it. Like I never.
Okay.
I was brand new.
You were doing a set number. Okay.
Yeah, I was like brand new. I was new in the industry. So that the education and the conversation had always been, I'll just put $150, $200 on it and go. And because being Canadian, I was paying Canadian funds to the carrier. I had like a 148, 156 exchange rate as well, right? So there was all these things that we had to have the conversation. But he said one thing where he says, like, listen, understand this. If you put $150 to $200 on these and you're moving 10 a week, right? He goes, in 6 months, if you have a claim and it's like $100,000 legal bill, you have zero profit. And I went, oh, he goes, yeah, exactly. He goes, you got to make as much as the claim would be a minimum of every quarter, minimum. And I went, oh, so you never think of that side of the equation.
Exactly.
Right. The claim side, like,
but
how
that's
much
every,
is it cost to
that's every business though. And that's, I think the more we are transparent on those fixed, especially if it's a fixed cost or something, hidden like that, the better it is for everybody to understand. But if you're not,
but it's not even a hidden cost, it's a what if.
Well,
so like here's the thing, so here's the thing, you buy house insurance to cover your house on a what if, right? How many people, and this is a big question, How many people pay house insurance and never use it?
A lot.
Right? So if you think about it over the course of owning a home, it would be interesting because, so if I just some quick math, because I mean, and then I'll just go by mine. So like 9.
That's a great thing about insurance too. I mean, so starting early in my days of sales, really was retail, Best Buy, the warranties, obviously, big
So
thing.
over 25 years at $92 a month, it's $27,600, right? So for $27,600, if your house burns, you get a new house over 25 years. I just did it over the term of like a regular mortgage, right? Yeah. So you give me $27,600 and I'll make sure you get your $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 house rebuilt. That's a good deal.
Yeah.
Right. So you add an additional $27,000 a quarter a month in profit. And if there's a legal bill, you're covered. That's actually a good deal as well.
Yeah.
Right. And, but that might require an extra $92 a load. Does that blow you out of the margin ballpark?
Yes.
Right. So it's like claims, service needs, costs, at what point is it greed? And I think it's as fine as a razor's edge, DJ.
Yeah.
Because if you ask a customer at what point is it greedy, they're going to say above 15 to 20%.
It's perspective. Again, though, at the same time, I think it's a lot of perspective. Again, it's whose lens is looking through it and how are they looking through it at is going to be a big key, And
how do you so what? Okay, so I guess here's a better question to transition the conversation.
Yeah.
What are the key metrics that go into margin? Right. So one, your company invoice cost has to be considered.
Yeah.
Right. If y'all like watching, listening now live or on the replay, if y'all don't really understand what it costs your company to invoice a load, you need to, because that is the primary function. Like anything, you can sit there and say, okay, well, if it costs you $2,000 a day to run your company and you're making $1,500 a day, and all you're looking at is the $1,500 a day, going, yeah, man, I'm making $1,500 a day, but it costs you $2,000 at the end you're dead.
So Dan, I think we need to. I think even breaking down, like even the idea of invoicing, so it just sounds like to anybody, just sounds like a made up number, or most people who maybe don't understand the levels of business or the back end kind of nickels and dimes that add up very fast of business. The invoicing is not just a fee that somebody like randomly comes up. Well, hopefully your company is not coming up with a random fee.
Good correction.
It costs about $150 to just hopefully they're not doing that, but there is a set fee, and that's based on obviously all of everybody who's involved. So how many touches and all of the salaries and payrolls,
the overall expenses, rent, hydro, gas to heat and cool the place, like all of it.
All of it.
That's your invoice cost. Now, obviously, you double your freight, you lower your invoice cost. But at present time, what's your invoice cost? I remember one of the major corporations I worked for, their invoice cost was $70. Every order that went out, every invoice that went out the door cost $70.
Wow.
From a global perspective. And when you look at that, it's like, okay, so if you're making $50 profit on an order, the company is losing money. Because that's $70. If you make $100, and we were on a 70-30 split, so the company would make 70, like it was break even at $100.
Yeah.
So that's a number to understand.
Yes.
And as much as we sit there and we say, okay, well, if I take this business at $50, and again, DJ, I think we have to be very careful, because I'm not saying don't take the business. Like if your invoice cost is $150 and you have business that has a lot of business, it's easy, it's dedicated, there's not a lot of effort, but your margin is the $50 to $75 range. Understanding that cost of invoicing is also not increasing cost, but increasing orders, because that will bring your cost of invoicing down.
I think talking about this too, I will ask you this, Dan. So I had from the first brokerage I was at, ended up they started to add in a fee, or there was like a minimum. You had to make a minimum of so much. I think it was like $100, $150. I forget what the number was, but
Mhm.
had to make a minimum of something, and it was not a percentage but a number. But
Mhm.
my one customer, the one that I told you, was basically just sending paper. My margins were 40%, but their quick runs. So the total cost was only $350 a load or something.
Yeah.
My margin, though, the profit in it was $75, but the margin itself was a lot.
Mhm.
But because it was under a certain threshold, they were going to hit me and ding me every time I did that load. That I was losing, and I was like, "Hold on, this doesn't work." Okay, and so it's one of those that I just did it. But yeah, it was one of those that
Well,
kind of
and
forced me out too.
yes, and that's common in a
You
lot
know what
of
I'm saying?
places.
Yeah,
It's common because it's like, guys, we can't. And again, it goes back to, as much as there's a practice element in logistics, you're
yeah,
doing it for profit, not practice,
yeah,
right? That's the reality of it. Like, we're
yeah,
running a business for profit, not practice.
exactly.
And like, we implemented this like additional insurance fee or something on all sorts of loads, and it was like $17 a load.
Ah,
And at first it's like $17, but it eats right into your margin.
yeah,
And if you're making 50, you're not actually making 50. If you're making 75, you're actually making like 48.
yeah,
And you start doing the math on it, and that number adds up huge.
yes,
And DJ, that's a conversation, because that was probably to ensure that you were never below the invoice cost,
of course, yeah, and
right? And
that's what it was. But that's what I'm saying. Even in that situation, like I understand the fee, but in that situation, there that's a tough, because
tough
again,
call,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you double the business without increasing any manpower, and you can get that fee down from 150 to 110 to 60 to 80. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, you can just
yeah,
keep chipping away at it. And
yeah,
I think people's invoicing costs, I truly believe a lot of companies are going to go to the
the
mobile
cost plus,
model.
yeah.
No, the mobile model, where
Oh, okay.
their office size decreases, and
Yes, yeah,
they're going
yeah,
to
yeah,
hire people
yeah.
that can work from home and all
Work from
that.
home, yeah,
I do think a lot
yeah,
of
cut
companies are going
overhead.
to go that route. There's going to be, the ones that will never do it, just like there's going to be the ones that will never get off non-compete, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
There's just certain companies that will never do that.
yeah,
And I guess maybe until the company's sold, or until the brass gets changed. I mean, there's so many variables, right? But it's
well,
if your margin, I mean, listen, $350 for an order, right? You're hopefully paying in that 250 range,
yeah,
275, and the rest is profit. Been there,
yeah,
done that. Been
yep,
there, done that. Like, we had one customer, anything 1 to 3 skids, it was $75. Above that, it was 100. And we had this formula that we had,
yeah,
because we understood where our competitors were.
yeah,
But we said, this, and we went to him and said, like, here, this is what we're going to do. And he said, okay, no problem. So it was very easy. Here's our cost. Here's what we do. Here's our cost. Here's what we add. Here's our cost. Here's what we add. And we
yeah,
won 98% of that business. And it came to a point
nice.
where he would just send it over, and knowing we had a
Yeah,
formula in place. So when you take $75 on a $200 skid, that's a big margin,
yeah,
but it's only $75.
but it's
So
only
the
exactly.
percentage is skewed. And
Yes,
that's why I think you bring it back
you-
to, what is your invoice cost? And as an agent, like, if you're an agent and you're doing, a 65, a 70, and 80%, I've seen as high as 85%, where you're making 85% of the margin. If the agency does not say with a minimum of X,
mhm,
then it's, in my opinion, I think this was one of the issues with Network FOB, is the reason they went out of business years ago,
mhm,
is because it was like, okay, people were making $100 here. You make $100, and the agency, it gives you 80%, and
yeah,
sometimes even 85, 90. So they make 15 to $20.
mhm,
right? And they have buildings, they have executives, they have legal for contracts. Like there's huge expenses on the back end of any brokerage, any carrier,
Yes.
right? Like there's huge expenses on the back end, and not understanding those expenses can actually kill you. Because I can't tell you how many companies I've sat with. And I'm like, okay. They're like, no, man, we did really well last year. I said, you did. And then we start figuring it out. And there's like half of their customer base that they're losing money on. And the other half pays for that bottom half. And it's like, okay, so guys, if you just understood this and you moved at $10 a load here based on all this volume, you'd actually like, $15, $20, $30, $40 a load. You'd actually, and whether that balances out, hey, can you renegotiate with your suppliers? And it's not saying, drop the rates to your suppliers to the bottom dollar, but can you renegotiate? Because it's a recipe for like to the point where one of my customers that I was sitting down with management, their main customer was like 62% of their business. And I said, so here's the deal. Your main customer you're making money on, them being 62% of your business, that's actually paying for all of these 25 customers. You, for whatever reason, you lose that customer, you will be bankrupt in months.
Yes.
And you will not have a pipeline big enough to get
but
that customer.
It's just like the trucking companies and with the stuff going on with gas. I mean, just like what happened in, end of 18 or was it end of 19 when?
Well, yeah. So it was 2019 that it all happened.
There was a lot of with the pricing and the gas and everything. It caused what we're if they're not watching that stuff even today. I mean, we talk about it with Dean, but that percentage. I mean, if they're just taking loads because they think, oh well, I'm moving freight, so I'm making money, but they're not paying attention to all of that.
Yes, but here's the thing is. That's typically reserved for the smaller carrier spot market, right? Some larger brokerages still don't sit down with those numbers. It's a fact. And as a salesperson, okay, and again, this is very, this is almost one-sided because I believe in the 4 pillars of transportation, family, you have colleagues, you have customers, and you have company. Those are your 4 pillars.
Yep.
Right? Family, team, customer, and company. And if those 4 are not profitable, it's a recipe for disaster. But that's my perspective. So I always asked, what's the invoice cost? Because I wanted to make sure the company I was working for remained profitable. Some people just don't give a shit. It's like, okay, I'm coming in, I'm gonna make some money, and I'm off. Right? I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna make some money. I'm looking after myself, which is how a lot of people work. But as a company, you need to stay healthy in order to help those clients. And as a commissioned salesperson, you run a company inside a company, and you are the CEO of that business.
Yeah, of your business,
right? Of your own business. So you want to make sure it's profitable. If you're doing a 12% margin and you can get an 18% margin, you'd obviously want that, right? and again, based on the value you bring to the table. So I believe you have a minimal cost to make your company profitable. And then it's all about the value you bring. And this is not some, fictitious value. It's like, what is the true value?
Yeah. What are you actually having to do? What do you have?
What do you add? How do you add to your customer's life?
Yes.
That's worth something. Because I'll tell you one thing. I've had many customers, I've often shared a story where we took 1.8 million in demurrage and 12 months later we had 0 demurrage, right? So I saved that company $1.8 million because I made 400,000. I still save them 1.8.
Yeah. Crazy.
Right. So I saved them 1.4, if you will, but I was still price competitive with the person they were using. So I made $500,000. They saved $1.8 million. Exactly. I added major value, reworked things and redid stuff. So the profit I was making, the margin I was making was never relevant. Ever. because they saw the value. Now, you can't just get there in today's day and age. You can't make a phone call and go, oh yeah, but I could do this. This is it's going to be. It's like you got to go through those steps. I had to build that trust. I had to work with them for months to build that and build that relationship. But in the end, my margins equated to me making close to $500,000 and them saving, probably with the stock transfers, probably close to $2 million.
Yeah.
So that's
everybody, and as long as everybody's winning, I mean, that's the
100%.
Everybody has to
you
win.
give me $100,000 and I give you $2 million back.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
Would you do that deal all day long, right?
Yeah.
Like all day long, and I wouldn't care, or you wouldn't care, how much of that 500,000 is profit to me, and how much I'm reinvesting or whatever you want to call it to give you the 2 million. You wouldn't care.
No, not at all.
And so this is kind of where I believe margins need to be. And I listen, don't get me wrong, DJ. I fully believe in the cost plus model.
Yeah.
Like I fully believe in the cost plus model.
Too.
But also cost plus,
I think it's the
only
way
if it's huge.
Again, it's the only way to keep out the questions that everybody is always so worried about. Even I know there's a lot of brokers that will listen to this later on, or part of a brokerage somewhere that'll think, okay, but now they just came up, my company saying that the cost to do this is $180 for each invoice. That sounds crazy. Or my company saying $300. That sounds insane. Is that? And then, now it's, well, are they making it up? Is that actual? Is that real?
But here's the flip side of it, right, DJ, is as a company, like if you own a company, it's your mandate to get your cost per invoice as low as possible. Like you have to, like if you work for a company whose cost of invoice is $300, then you really got to question.
What is going on?
You really got to question, like, how much are these people paying themselves?
So what would you say is a good average then, or what have you?
So I've seen, and what would be a good average? I wish when I had my brokerage, I looked at this because we were 37 million, and it was a fair number from a brokerage perspective, where it was like, okay, that's kind of where that teeter totter goes, right? You either take off or you kind of stay stagnant right at that 37-40 million dollars, maybe into that 60 million. But it's like after the 60 million, do you stay at 60 or do you hit 160, 200, 300, 400, 500, right? Yeah. And so that kind of tipping point, it would have been interesting to see. But from the companies I've worked with, we're averaging out between 87 and like 162.
Okay.
Are the averages and everywhere in between.
Yeah, I was going to say at the few brokerages that I've worked with, I want to say it was right around 75 to 150. Yeah.
And, again, buildings, staff, accounting, legal fees, computers, like it all goes in, stationery, everything that happens goes in. If you're a split, so meaning if your company pays for 30% of travel or 60% of travel, like all of that goes into the equation. Right. So it's what did it cost you annually to run your company divided by how many loads? I mean, I'm talking commission, salesperson, and everything. Commission to say like everything. You have to have every cost in there. And however, you look at some of the margins that I hear salespeople getting today. It's nowhere even close. But, and this is the big thing, but they're like, I'm making money. No, you're not. In actuality, you're not. And I can remember vividly the last time I did this exercise, and I said to my customer, I said, okay, put all these down, and here's your equation, like in Excel. Hit go. And watching his face when all the red started populating. And it was funny because some of them were off. So some of them in like Q1 lost $40,000 from that customer. But if they changed the rate by $20, they would have made 42 or 31,000. Right. And then I said, okay, so do this. And then again, copy that spreadsheet and just put at the bottom, $20 each, and increase all the red by $20. Like each load by $20, meaning your rate. No more cost, just the rate. And it was such a change on the bottom line.
It's crazy.
And that is eye-opening.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like the visual whether it be numerical or actually pictures, is huge. This morning on LinkedIn, I was scrolling through, and there was this post, and I should have reshared it, and I've only thought of it after, where it was a guy sitting on a bench and a dog sitting beside him on the ground. And the dog above its head has a picture where it's thinking about sitting with its owner.
Yes.
And the guy's thinking about a car, house,
Yes,
business,
exactly.
money, stock market, and all that. And it says, you wonder why dogs are happier. And you have to stop. And of course, there was a whole bunch of people. Yeah, well, the dog, when dogs are alone and da-da-da. Yeah, I get that. But just for a moment, just stop and look at the picture. Right? Look at what's in front of you for just one moment. Yes. And it's true. Like, and that goes back to Brian on Thursday being fully present.
Yes.
So for me, it's an ongoing conversation when you talk about margins to a customer. Even if you're doing cost plus, hey, Mr. Customer, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we'll do a cost plus. We'll be fully visible. We'll give you full visibility. However, here's the deal. You need X, Y, and Z, or A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Mm-hmm. In order to give you all of that, I need a minimum of 25%. Because I have costs I have to incur. Now, if you only need A, B, C, D, I can do it at 18. If you only need A, B, I could do it at 15. Yeah. And have that. I think you have that.
You have to have that
straightforward, stand-up conversation with your customer. I believe they will respect you for it because you understand your costs. You understand how you're profitable. I believe that conversation will equate into a long-term partnership. And then my other question is, okay, and this kind of goes right along, DJ, with customer profile. Is if you need 18% to be profitable, and your customer will not allow you to make that 18%, do you really want them as a customer? Because
exactly, that's
when they sell product. If they understand their margins and they understand their costs, they will try to never sell it for below cost. So why should you?
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I agree.
Amen.
Good morning. Good morning, Foz. Is that Pre?
Do we have any? Fazia. Good morning.
Yeah. Hey. Good morning.
I hope I pronounced that right. But we're just nice of you to join us here this morning. So DJ, that's the convo, buddy. I don't know. You got anything else?
I agree, and I think it's one of those that's always going to be a battle. I mean, it's the same thing. I
don't know if it's a battle. Would you more consider it an ongoing conversation?
Yes. Okay. Yes. But it's always going to be because again, like you mentioned the picture. So there's the picture of the dog and the guy, and I know exactly. I love that picture. I know exactly what picture you're talking about. But even to take it to the next step, it also depends on who. I mean, what you want and your goals or levels that you're trying to reach might be different than what I'm going for, and so. Again, it's what we're really focusing on. But to that point is and why I'm saying that is, again, just like this broker and the margins and the fixed rates, or not fixed rates, but keeping your invoicing cost is the same thing with these the drivers and the carriers. Maybe they didn't know that, but taking loads for less than $1 a mile. I mean, nobody's making money at that rate. But they were taking them because they were just thinking, well, they're moving their truck. And again, I think we're always going to have that with the lack of information and the lack of just really.
It's a lack of education, I think, over information. It's education. Well, exactly. And here's the thing, like you start looking, and I know we're going over time and it's a holiday, but you look at it and you say, whose responsibility is it to educate the people that manage / help you be profitable? Right. Yeah. And as an owner, if you're not educating your entire team and making them fully aware, then you're the one at fault. Like everything starts at the top, everything. So when it comes to cost plus, when it comes to like anything, I don't give a shit what it is. It all starts at the top. Yeah. And if you're not educating your team, putting all these things into practice, then you're losing. And if your company is not successful, it's on you.
Yeah.
A salesperson is just going to sell. A salesperson is going to generate as much revenue as they can. And if they can make $50 on the load, and some of them make $50 on the load and spend 3 hours trying to find a truck for it.
Yeah.
Like, let's call it spade a spade.
I sat with so many people that did that. Yes.
Yeah, but like again, as somebody at the top, what are you doing to help your team get better?
Yeah.
If you're doing nothing, don't expect anything different.
Yes, sir. Agree.
And it's not just you can't do that. Why? You can't. Why? Like, be a 5-year-old. Why? Until you finally get somebody to go, I don't know why. Well, then that's where we should probably
figure
start.
It out. We better figure it out.
Like, when you think about it, right? Like, how crazy is this? We're like, well, why can't we do it? Well, okay, you can't do it. Oh, okay. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why can't I do it like this? I remember companies saying to me, you can't do that. You can't dedicate. You can't do trailer pools as a broker. I'm like, why? Why not? Of course I can. It's going to take too much time to manage. No, it won't. If you do it properly and you spend 3 minutes a day on it, you'll be fine.
Yeah. The right team together, anything's possible, y'all.
Yeah. What do we got, DJ? What now? Did your quote even come close to doing something like this?
This is fun. This is fun. So thank you again. Anybody who does watch this replay back, anybody who is joining us, Faza, thank you for the good morning. Memorial Day again, guys. Just in remembrance of anybody serving the military, lost a life, especially Civil War time was crucial for this. So love everybody. That's the big key. Make sure everybody wins and love everybody. That's what I'm going to tell you. But thank you to America and Logistics, Interior and Trucking. Thank you, Dan, obviously, for making this possible. Got a good show this week, guys. So don't miss out. Tomorrow we got a great guest. I think Thursday is going to be fun as well. So good
week. Chuck Snow from Traffic. That's going to be awesome.
That is going to be fun. So, and then Wednesday, don't miss, obviously, Triple D Day with the man. Quote coming out is Mary Roach, and it's heroism doesn't always happen in a burst of glory. Sometimes small triumphs and large hearts change the course of history.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversation.